Hey there, Wolfpack fans. It's me again, Kenton Gibbs, with my main man, Grayson Boone. And we are going to be talking to you today about a position group that I've been waiting to get into in the tight ends. And one of our leading rushers from last year, a guy that was wildly impactful while he was healthy, has announced his departure from the program. We're going to talk about Demie Sumo leaving and what the tight end room should look like, and all of these things and more on today's episode of Locked on Wolfpack. Gracie, you ready to get into it?
I'm ready. I'm sad that Shark Week is over in Raleigh, but on to new beginnings.
Hey, we're going to talk about the impact of the loss of Old Sharko, and we're going to talk about what this tight end room is going to look like. So stick around for today's episode of Locked on Wolfpack.
You are Locked on NC State, your daily podcast on the NC State Wolfpack, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
All right. Welcome in, everybody. Thanks for showing up to yet again another episode Locked on Wolfpack. As Kenton just mentioned, we're going to be getting into the tight end room. That's going to be our main positional breakdown for this episode as we continue on and touch on the main position rooms as we get closer and closer to summer and then subsequently the fall. We've already talked about the quarterbacks. We talked about the running backs. So if you did miss those episodes, feel free to go back and find those as we continue on. And we're going to be talking about the tight ends today. But first, we are going to talk about our most recent departure with the football team as our beloved Sharko, a.k.a. Demie Sumo, running back, has decided to enter the transfer portal. This news broke on, I believe it was Friday. Shocked a lot of folks, myself included, although I had been hearing some potential rumblings of this over the last couple months. But I was sad to see this formalize on Friday. Demie was some of the most exciting moments of our lackluster offense last season in Raleigh, provided a lot of hope in the running back position as we've kind of, we've had some bright spots, we've had some low spots out of our running back room over the last couple of years. And the uncertainty, I think, that surrounded the position last year after the departure of Bam Knight and Ricky Person, we're kind of looking around on who's going to be the next guy. And we had Demie Sumo emerge kind of after off the practice squad with the amount of buzz that he was generating in the off seasons. And he showed why he was generating that buzz in early summer practices and fall practices as he was electric in several moments on the field. But the downfall to Demie was just his health overall. He just couldn't stay on the field long enough to be as effective as we would have liked him to be. So this is disappointing in a sense where I think it's going to feel like we're missing out on his maximum potential, and that's a tough pill to swallow. But Kenton, what are your thoughts, your early thoughts on the departure of Demie Sumo?
It's tough to gauge because while I don't think that the team is like, oh, they're going to be lost and he was the running game and all that. I mean, realistically, he wasn't. Like he was a really, really good player. And I think that he was primed to come into this year and be one of the lead bell cows in terms of toting the rock. But I mean, it's tough for me to say like, hey, this offense is not going to be the same when realistically that's the goal. That's the goal. And it takes a tool out of Robert and I's toolkit, which you hate to see. That's really unfortunate. What he could have been here with 2 more years in Thunder strength and conditioning program and getting better and all that good stuff would have been in quite a time to see. But we wish the best wherever he goes, and I hope that he is healthier wherever he goes because, I mean, we all know the rule, right? You can't make the club from the tub. So it's a sad thing to see. I'm not quite understanding it, but I hadn't heard anything in terms of like the exact reasoning. So, it is what it is. This is a impactful loss. I'm not going to say that, oh, this is nothing. Like this is basically a guy who never touched the fit. No, it's not that type of deal. It means something but it doesn't mean everything, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it's certainly interesting from a depth chart perspective. Not just coming into this 2023 season, but even last year, like I mentioned, there was a lot of uncertainty surrounding who was going to be getting the bulk of the carries. And while it turned out to be Jordan Houston, I wouldn't say it was because that was maybe the design plan after the first couple weeks. Is we saw Demie kind of rise up to a kind of an equal running back one position with Houston after the ECU game, I believe it was. And, Demie had it was a bit of a breakout performance. This picture you see on the screen here from the Texas Tech game, he had 2 touchdowns, and you felt like he probably could have gone for at least 3 more with the amount of tackles he was breaking. He was very nearly could have rushed and caught a couple more touchdowns than he had. But, as exciting as a player as he was, I still think we have so much left, I guess, behind him in the running back room. Like we mentioned in our running back episode that we talked about just a couple shows ago, and the potential we have in Michael Allen coming up, and we hope that he can be a main fixture in the offense this year. Kendrick Raphael, the exciting signing, I guess the running back we stole perhaps from Iowa. A lot of potential there, but something interesting I've heard, kind of, I guess, rumors thus far, and how Robert Anae is going to utilize his offense, in that he doesn't quite emphasize like true running backs in a sense. He likes to get creative, maybe wide receivers in the backfield, kind of like a Deebo Samuel type idea. So yes, it is a significant loss in that he was one of our main fixtures in the backfield, but I think we have so much talent behind him, and we still a lot to figure out in the direction of the offense under Anae, that I don't think it's a crushing blow, with all due respect to Demie. But it is, like you said, it's a loss nonetheless.
And I think that this is kind of the benefit of having a guy like Anae, who, when they were at Virginia, when he and Brendan Armstrong were at Virginia, they didn't have a dynamic running back, so they used the wide receivers a lot in the running game. There was a lot of pop passes, all that good stuff. But when he did have a dynamic running back, when Tucker was that guy, he showed up and showed out. He made sure that Tucker was heavily emphasized in the game plan. Sean Tucker is the Tucker I'm referring to. It was emphasized in the game plan because that's what it allowed for. And Demie being gone, again, you don't want to see it. I'm not going to sit here and say I'm excited to see him leave. May the door hit him where the good Lord split him. No, not one of those situations. It's just one where it's like, sad to see a tool go, because at the end of the day, if he was going to ball out, have a great season, do all the things, then that just adds in to what Anae could have done. And that adds into the potential of, okay, not only can we use Demie in a lot of ways, but also we can keep fresh legs in. It makes it easier to keep fresh legs in because you have proven ball carriers, guys that can do what they need to do, guys that you are proven commodities come game time when live bullets are flying, per se, who can do it. But, it is what it is. It's the new nature of college football. It's the new nature of college sports. It happens.
Yeah, something I've said on here before with Robert Anae is I think he gets the absolute most out of the personnel that he has. And so I think, even despite Demie's departure here, I think we're going to be okay, is what I'm trying to say here. I think we're going to be okay with, Jordan Houston out of the backfield, Michael Allen out of the backfield. If we do end up seeing, a young player like a Kendrick Raphael out of the backfield, I think we're going to be okay in terms of what Robert Anae is, able to pull a rabbit out of his hat, per se. But, despite all of that, I do wish Demie the absolute best. I think wherever he lands, I'm going to make a Jaws joke. I hope they have a bigger boat.
All right. Well, I definitely get that. And, at the end of the day, you hope for this young man to have success wherever he goes. And I just hope that he doesn't stay in conference. And that's something that I'm, giving this young man a lot of respect and whatnot. And I'm betting on he goes out of conference just for my personal sake and my care for old Sharko. But anyway, if you're better, head on over to FanDuel Sportsbook. Folks, make a fast break to FanDuel during the NBA playoffs because right now, if you are a new customer, you can get a no sweat first bet of up to $1,000. That's $1,000 in bonus bets back that's $1,000 in bonus bets back if your first bet doesn't win. Trust me, folks, it is so easy to love. It is so easy to get into. There's no better place to bet all the playoff action than America's #1 sportsbook. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and get a no sweat first bet of up to $1,000. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon. FanDuel, official sports betting partner of the NBA.
All right. And so now getting into our main discussion, which is the I guess the tight end depth chart. Before we start, I do think that this is a super interesting position to discuss because I think at NC State, we haven't been traditional in our uses of the tight end position outside of Kerry Angeline a couple years ago with Devin Leary hitting him for several passes for touchdowns. But outside of Kerry, I wouldn't consider us to be traditional in what we've looked like with the tight end. We even had, Jalen Samuels lighting up at tight end, which is always fascinating in the years that he spent here. But I think a lot of these guys kind of speak to the uniqueness that we're going to discuss here of the position that we have. And we'll get right into it now. But the first guy I want to talk about is Christopher Toudle.
Well, I want to talk about what you said there in that the uniqueness in the tight end position. I mean, there are two different types of tight ends, even in today's game, right? When we talk about the uniqueness, you generally think about H-backs. And what's the difference between an H-back and a traditional Y? When you think of a traditional Y, you think of Rob Gronkowski. You think of Michael Mayer from Notre Dame. You think of big, sturdy inline blockers that, they'll go out and do their thing in receiving as well. But you think of the traditional hand in the dirt blockers type of guy. When you think about the H-back situation, that's a lot more of the J-Sam situation that you were talking about. And you find creative ways to get him the ball. You kind of get it to him on jet sweep. You find ways to do all these things. And so I think that our usage of the tight end, Kerry Angeline in particular, as big as he is, I don't think he was attached to the line enough and did enough blocking to be considered a traditional Y. So I think that the H-back is just kind of the evolution of tight ends in college football, but we tend to utilize ours well when we have really good ones.
So sorry to jump ahead here, but yeah, I think it's going to be interesting with Anai too because of the amount of things he can pull off within an offense with, switching guys in and out of the backfield. You might see some wide receivers back there. You might even see some tight ends because of the guys that we have that are quote unquote tight ends here in the Wolfpack uniform. But Christopher Toudle is a good example of this because he's listed as a wide receiver, which I think is interesting, but we typically use him, prototypically as a tight end type guy. But he's the type of athlete where you could very well see him in the backfield for specific plays and it would be able to work because of the type of athlete that he is. He finds space well. He's a pretty adequate blocker from what I've seen. But I'm excited about his ability to create space for himself and then pull down the catch when it's thrown his way. But I think a guy like Toudle could be a big time anchor. Assuming it is Brennan Armstrong, we are still assuming, but he could be an anchor for a guy like a Brennan Armstrong, and that could go a long way this year.
The biggest improvement I want to see from Toudle is in the blocking department. I want to see him get better, not in terms of I need you mauling people and getting them up out of there like you're Michael Orr on the blind side driving the 30. No, I don't need all that. What we do need, however, is to trust this young man to sustain his blocks, to at least give the back enough time to open up a hole potentially. But even if you can't do that, seal off your man and let your back get through the hole. Christopher Toudle has amazing concentration as a receiver. Amazing. Nothing short of amazing. The big catch against Maryland in the bowl game comes to mind. The defender, the ball goes right through his hands and slides into Christopher Toudle's. But that play took amazing concentration because Toudle is sliding. He's going down on on, and I believe he's sliding with, it's almost like a baseball slide here. One leg tucked under him, one leg extended out, and the ball is redirecting in real time, and he just adjusts, makes the catch. Amazing concentration. That's the type of stuff he can do. He showed us with the 4 touchdowns, not last year, but the previous year before, or the year before last, and he's shown us that he can be a capable and good receiver. I want to see the blocking meet that level or get close to that level. That would take his game to the next level for me.
Yeah, for those of you that went to the stat sheet when we started mentioning Toudle here, I think what gets diluted down about his season last year is probably the injuries we had at quarterback and subsequently the inability to get the ball to him. So I wouldn't focus so much on that, but focus more so on what you saw out of him in 2021, because I think that'll be more of the guy you see here in 2023. Moving forward, our next guy is Cedd SEABOROUGH. This season he's going to be wearing number 14 as opposed to the number 47 he has in the picture here. But SEABOROUGH's an interesting one to me because he didn't have a whole lot of PT last year, but most notably, as you see here in this picture, for those of us joining us on YouTube, the one touchdown catch he did have was at Clemson, and it was a momentous catch there before halftime as NC State took the lead on the road in the big primetime game down at Clemson. You felt like that was a big-time momentum shift from someone you would have never expected in Cedd SEABOROUGH, as he was just a freshman last year. But he's going to be a name to watch in the mix, not just naming dudes here, even though we kind of are doing that on the episode. But, despite being, I guess, the more targeted of the two twins, as he has a twin brother named Fred, I think Cedd will be kind of an auxiliary use. He won't see as many targets from, or as many targets as a Toudle or a Trent Pennix, who we're going to mention here in just a second, but he is a good depth option. I think he still will be on the field in pivotal moments, able to make big plays when his number is called.
Here's the very interesting thing about SEABOROUGH. He is the highest rated tight end on NC State's roster, according to PFF from last year.
Really?
So, yeah, he is the highest rated in terms of player grade last year on NC State's roster, but that's because Cedd is a hellacious blocker. He is when he's on the field, you can trust him to execute what he needs to do in the blocking game. I'd like to see SEABOROUGH used more. I'd like to see him kind of getting downfield more and see if he has the wheels and ability to do good things in the passing game as well, in the same way that, when you saw him come into the game, you generally thought of him as a blocker. That's how he snuck wide open into the end zone on that play against Clemson, because when you saw 47 come into the game, you generally were thinking, run. It's a run. They're probably going to be running behind him. And then, you just sneak him out for that little pop pass. But I like Cedd a lot. I love to see him used more in the passing game, but his blocking, his effort, his tenacity is good to see.
Next guy here, I think he's kind of the Swiss Army knife out of the tight end room. And of course, that is Trent Pennix. I say this because he's been used as a running back. He's been used as a wide receiver. He's been used as a tight end. And you got to think that Robert and I is thrilled at the idea, the flexibilities that a guy like Trent Pennix possesses, of course, but this is all going to hinge on his health. We've seen him miss quite a substantial amount of time these past 2 seasons, especially with the promise that he showed when he's healthy. The playmaking ability he possesses, and sending it down the sideline. Both out of a wheel route, you can, a swing route, you name it, he can do it. And I think that's what makes him a Swiss Army knife. But what are your thoughts on Pennix this upcoming season?
So far, of all the players on the roster in this tight end group, he is by far the best with the ball in his hands.
Absolutely.
Hard to tackle, hard to bring down, for most guys, you got to pick your poison, because if you put a big guy, if you put a big linebacker on him, you're probably going to see somebody that's too slow. If you put a safety on him, if you put a corner on him, they're going to have a tough time getting them to the ground. With that being said, like you talked about, it's all about the health with Trent. It is all about the health. What do those shoulders look like? Because, we've seen it time and time again. The shoulders kind of limiting him or holding him back. if when he's healthy, when he's right, he's rolling. He's rolling. He's a dynamic playmaker. He is an X factor. And I know some people would be saying, well, some people would say that I'm taking that a little too far. I'm telling you this, with what I have seen from him, with another year in the position, another year of understanding the game, another year of understanding that position, because mind you, he came to NC State as a running back. With another year of him learning and understanding this position, learning and understanding, hey, this is what holes in zones look like. This is where you need to sit down at. This is how to get open. I am telling you, this man has the goods to be something special at the tight end position, especially with the way that Robert and I has used his tight ends in the past.
And Trent was, he was the guy I was maybe most thrilled about to get back coming into this year, mainly because of his health problems. And I would like to see him be able to finish his collegiate career on the field. But this is a guy, I think at his peak, he can show you flashes of like a Jalen Samuels type player.
Mm-hmm.
And that's high praise because of how coveted Jalen Samuels was with his time here in Raleigh. But Trent Pennix reminds me of that sort of player. You can stick him anywhere and he's going to make a play on the ball regardless. And so I think I'm anxious at the idea of what Trent Pennix can do in this new offense and all these new things to try out with our new quarterbacks and just a lot to be, desired there. And I think Trent Pennix is going to be an exciting guy to watch. But rounding out this tight end room, the new guy on the block, that is JAVONTE, also known as Juice Vereen, friend of the program. Kenton has had him on here before. Hopefully we can have him back on here sometime this upcoming summer, maybe in the fall. But freshman, he's a big time recruit for NC State this past recruiting cycle. He's been instrumental in recruiting other players here as well. That can go a long way in kind of building a recruiting class, but a lot of buzz surrounding Juice coming out of high school. I saw repeatedly coaches, both on the team he played for, but teams he played against were consistently saying that was the best player on the field, bar none. He was the best athlete we saw out there tonight. And so, of course, a lot of guys coming out of high school, they get similar praise, but not at the level that Juice was receiving it, coming into college. But from everything I've heard, he's an elite playmaker, superior athlete. And I think it's interesting to point out that some consider him to be undersized at the tight end position. But I think that's kind of funny because the other guys, like a Trent Pennix and a Christopher Toudle, are roughly the same size. Because Juice is 6'4", 210. I'm sure he's probably even bigger than that now, hanging around Coach Thunder. But you spent some time with Juice on here. What are your thoughts on Juice coming into his freshman season?
The only bad thing that I will say about Juice Vereen is that he wanted to get an NIL deal with Juicy Juice and not Welch's. Brother, you need better discernment in terms of which juice is superior. But with that being said, this young man is, I would like to say, the wild card of the group, because I think I've asked about him. I've asked some sources close to the team about him. I said, and this was by direct quote, which player is he more like? A Trent Pennix kind of J-Sam kind of situation, or are we looking at a Kerry Angeline? And the answer I got was, and I quote, both. I said, what? They said both. He is big and he has those long arms. He can find ways to catch the ball at some very awkward angles, but he is also a load to get on the ground when he has the ball in his hands. He is listed at 210, but he plays bigger than that. So the thing for Juice Vereen will be, how quickly can he learn what needs to be learned? Because objectively speaking, the biggest curve for a lot of freshmen coming into college football, yes, the physical part is going to be part of it, because you're going to be seeing grown man DNs and whatnot that you have to get up out of there in terms of blocking. But even beyond that, you're going to have to process a playbook that has a ton of information in it. And so can we trust you to be where you're supposed to be, to run the right route, to understand if there's an option route? Well, is this man coverage, so I'm taking this out? Or is this zone coverage, so I'm sitting it down? those are the types of things that you wonder about with a true freshman. Thankfully, he's been here through spring ball, so he's kind of got the ability to see what that looks like a little bit against our defense, which has some hellacious safeties, has some safeties that are big time. So I'm looking forward to seeing his progression. I am very excited to see him suit up in the red and white because I have heard nothing but good things so far. I've heard that he's coming along well, that he's grasping the playbook well. I want to see what he looks like with, more time with the playbook, with more time in the weight program, with more time getting bigger, stronger, faster, understanding the game. And potentially, if he plays a lot early, the game's slowing down for him. I'd love to see what that looks like.
Yeah, I mean, despite maybe in the eyes of some being buried on the depth chart at this position specifically, I'm going to be keeping my eyes peeled for number 11 on offense this fall because I would certainly love to get Juice some run in his early college career because the more experience for a player and an athlete like this, the better because you get him up to speed at the college level. He could be a special playmaker here in Raleigh, especially with the uniqueness of this new offense we're trying to implement. But we'll be right back. Go ahead.
I was just saying, even if he doesn't play this year, that's fine too. I mean, this is a true freshman we're looking at here. So it'd be great. It'd be great to see him get on the field and do all these things. But even if he doesn't play, we'll be all right. We still got lots of years of juice left.
Absolutely. That was perfect. Lots of years of juice left in the tank. But we're going to round this thing out in just a second after a quick word from our sponsors. All right, so rounding out our tight end discussion here as we continue on through our positional breakdowns. Kenton, what are your resounding thoughts out of the tight end position? What are you most excited to see from this tight end group moving into the new era of the Robert and I offense?
I mean, I'm very excited to see how they're used, but I'm more so excited to see how have these young men grown out of last season. Like, objectively, all of the guys have marching orders going forward for what they needed to be better at, except for, of course, Juice. He's a true freshman, whatever. That's the case there. But everybody else, you have clear orders for, hey, this is what you need to get better at. This is what you need to get better at. This is what does this look like, right? What does it look like with Christopher Toudle taking another year of blocking and of understanding that, hey, I may be listed as a wide receiver, but darn it, if I put my hand in that dirt and I'm attached to the line of scrimmage or I'm attached to the offensive line, I got to find a way to dig guys out the hole. What does it look like when we're talking about a Cedd SEABOROUGH and we're talking about, hey, man, we're going to need you to be a big contributor in the passing game. What does that look like for you? How can we best help you be a big-time contributor in that way and all that good stuff? I'm excited to see what these guys look like after another year of understanding, hey, y'all were good last year. Not saying that y'all were a bad group at all. We understand uncertainty with the quarterback position and all that. Can you take it to the next level? Can you go from being just another position group on this team to being one of the leaders on this team?
This group can be a table-setting group when it's all said and done, but a lot to still be seen, coming out of the fall from practice and onto the gridiron here in the regular season in 2023. But Wolfpack fans, thank you again for coming out as always. As I often say on here, toss us a like. Let us hear your comments on the tight ends coming up in this exciting 2023 football season. Tell us who you think should be, I guess, tight end 1, tight end 2, and so on. What you're most excited to see out of the tight ends this coming season. We want to hear it all. So hop in them comments. Let us know what you think. Subscribe, hit us with likes, do it all. We're going to be interacting with you all just as much. But again, as always, thank you for giving us a listen. And also, as always, go Pack.
Go Pack.
You are Locked On NC State, your daily podcast on the NC State Wolfpack, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.